I've been having to manage the staff and warning staff people about the microphone on the Dave Toolist Show. It's so hot after the program that it has to go into a special cooling chamber so that other people who will be using the microphone after me, maybe even hours later, won't be injured by the heat emanating from this device. This is David Toolist, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, the blogger with the biggest pen. And if you, my listener, call me and keep me posted about your doings, I'll be the best blogger in Tennessee. It's fine to be the biggest, but that only goes so far. We want to be the best blogger in Tennessee. David Toolist with the bow tie. Today I'm wearing my scandalous bow tie. It's red and it has the ink blot on it. Now, and that's the one that sometimes I wear. And the reason I like this tie, it goes with all my disparate types of shirt designs. And Jeanette can't fault me in wearing it, though I'm afraid it needs a washing and it needs an ironing as well. The number is 800-8949. That's 800-8949. David Toolist, and you are kind of at the center of what we want to understand is the optimistic, positive view about Chattanooga and reforms required. There are numerous reforms that are required. We heard from Joe Salant yesterday in a presentation of a kind that has not been heard before in this city, the city that favors the Bible more than any other city in the country by one survey, and one that has many Christian nonprofit charities here, many churches, and yet there is in our analysis a great lack, a tremendous lack, which Joe indicates with more ferocity than I do, is a judgment of God against this city and its people. And we have heard about the cost of it. And so the cost of God's judgment against the people of this part of the world, this part of the country, is varied. And we see it in blindness and in desiring the wrong thing, in accepting things that should not be tolerated, and in a kind of passivity in many areas that have a passivity which has at its root a spiritual component, which is to say a review, if we looked at that component, would be, does that person or do those people love God, fear God, and do they repent of their sins? Those are the questions with which to evaluate their status, right? Their spiritual status. It's never just spiritual in the abstract, it's spiritual in a personal connection, because they are made in God's image, and they are accountable to their Creator personally for their work or their lack of work. There were elections yesterday in Tennessee, and the question I wanted to ask you is: do elections matter? Do they matter? And you might think that in my mind they don't matter, because here I am bringing up the fourth segment, not the lead of my show, to hear about Tim Boyd and Brent Lambert, or to hear about Eric Watson, the establishment Republican sheriff in Bradley County, being unseated by a man who fights the Yankee drug war in Bradley County. Steve Lawson is going to be the new sheriff there. Why are they not at the lead of the story? Well, in a way, they're not at the lead of the story, and you're catching word about them here, kind of at the end of my moment on the air today, because the election is in a way not as important, because the personalities of the men and their variances between, say, opponents on policy, those are not really significant in the overall scheme of things. And so you might say, well, David, your voluntarist colors are showing me again. In a way, that's true. And the number, by the way, is 800-8949, 800-8949. Now, the voluntarists are a unique group of libertarians, and they don't want to participate in elections, not by indifference, but on principle. And they don't like elections because they say, well, when you have elections, all you're doing is deciding which person you want to oppress you. And so if you're against external oppression, external constraint upon the liberty and freedom of the individual, you shouldn't vote at all. Now, people don't vote today, and voting numbers are lower and lower on account of the lost glory of the deity to which elections point, and they, in a way, they point to a false deity, and that is, you might say, the progressive will, or the will of the people. The state itself, that is the deity of our day. Now, elections, of course, are biblical in their origins, and they can be biblical in their practice today, no doubt, and often they are, where you have a godly man elected and the ungodly man thrown out, the wicked purveyor of state favor and the wielder of state authority thrown out. And it's in elections, you have the problem of, well, my bad guy is out and your bad guy is in. Okay, that's what the loser says, or the voter on the losing side says. And in a way, are we just trading bad guys for bad guys? Well, that's kind of caustic and kind of bitter, and I don't think I want to argue that, though I recognize the sentiment, and I'm sympathetic with it in some respects. This is David Toulis, and we are at 800-8949. That's 800-8949. So in East Ridge, in the East Ridge County Commission district race between Tim Boyd, who holds the office as a taxpayer watchdog, he was challenged, I believe, a second time by Brant Lambert, the mayor of East Ridge. Brant Lambert, a young man with young children in his family, standing there in the photograph with his lovely wife, not winning the race for the commission seat. Tim Boyd won. I'm looking here at the Nougat.com accounting of the numbers, with 1,203 votes, and Brant Lambert, the mayor, 714. And Tim Boyd has a statement that this is one of the most satisfying moments of my life. Now, I think we should just think for a moment about that and kind of savor this man's sensation, because here he is. He's under indictment. He's under indictment for extortion in a political conversation he had with Brant Lambert. And I've had two minds about this case. On one hand, I'm sympathetic to the defense of Brant Lambert by the prosecution of Tim Boyd by Neil Pinkston, the DA, and that's because Brant Lambert was the object of a threat. The threat was that you need to not run in the race because I'll publicize and publish materials I have about you, which are negative and might hurt you. Look, I'm only running for one more time. Why don't you just wait till the next term is done, and then I'll be out of the way, and you can run Brant Lambert for that seat. So that was the context of the conversation. And Tim Boyd, though, in discussing the negative evidence that he had for making Brant Lambert look bad, was making a threat and impinging upon Brant Lambert's freedom of movement and freedom of action, thereby violating the words of the statute. So it seems that there's something to say for the accusation and the accuser, that is the state of Tennessee, this legal fiction, that Tim Boyd made a threat. And so it does seem to fall into the scope of the statute. It does in the plain meaning of the statute. On the other hand, and thereby Tim Boyd's he's a crook and a bad guy, right? Because he made a threat, and you can't make threats. You can't make threats in general. On the other hand, this statute is a rotten statute. Okay, it's a rotten statute that's because it criminalizes business speech. It criminalizes political speech. Think if you're holding office, okay? And you're in the Republican Party. Let's just say for a second, I'm in the Libertarian Party. We're both in the House of Representatives. And I come to you and I say, look, you're a crucial vote in an upcoming bill review, and we're going to be voting on it, and you're a crucial vote. If you don't vote for my bill, I'm going to come into your district and campaign against you, okay? That apparently can't be done. But in a way, that's just political speech, and where I say, look, if you don't do this, I'll do that. That's just tit for tat. Yes, that does limit the freedom of the person getting the message. The person who hears that is going to think, boy, I better not do that because I better not act that freely as I had intended to because of this threat. Well, the statute makes that a crime, that's just political bartering. That's just political posturing. That's what happens in politics. It happens in business. If you open another store here, I'll open another store there. Is that person trying to limit the freedom of the person who's hearing his message? Well, yes. So apparently the statute makes it impossible for there to be threats, and maybe that's a good thing. I haven't thought through that entirely. Maybe it's a wrong thing for there to be an explicit positive law like that. in my mind, there shouldn't be a positive law at all. In my mind, since I'm a kind of a common law advocate, I would say there shouldn't be a statute at all. There should not be a statute for this. Just as there should not be a statute for murder or rape. These are common law crimes against God. They don't have to be written down and codified by men. But men, of course, we've done God better. We have to have everything written down, and we have to have a myriad volumes of these green books I'm holding here in my formerly newsprint ink stained fingertips. I'm a copy of the Tennessee Code annotated. I'm holding here volume 3B, which contains titles 12 to 15, including public property, printing and contracts, and also public planning and housing, and also holidays. Three subjects in this volume. We have stacks of these books. Man-made laws, of course, proliferate, and you don't have justice oftentimes, and you have abuses. So I think the statute is abusive, and it's vague, and yet here we have Tim Boyd facing a criminal trial on this. Brent Lambert, the victim in the phone calls that Brent Lambert made to Tim Boyd, asking for advice about what he should do, and Tim Boyd talking about publicly available knowledge about campaign donations. That there wasn't any secret information here. This was just public information available to any aggressive reporter, available to Dick Cook of East Ridge News Online to find out for himself. It's not hidden information. It's not skullduggery. It's not blackmail. But extortion is like blackmail, and that's why it's being prosecuted against Tim Boyd, because there's blackmail threat. When the threat comes, peace vanishes, and that's the idea behind the peace and dignity of the state interest in that statute. If someone makes a threat, then we don't have peace and we don't have the dignity of the state itself, and we have an injury to the people. So we have that on the law books, and we're going to enforce it. And yet, the people did not agree with the mailers from Brent Lambert that capitalized, made much of the mugshot of Tim Boyd under arrest in Sheriff Jim Hammond's office when he went to turn himself in. And so Tim Boyd wins the vote almost 2-1, and he says, this is one of the most satisfying moments in my life. He says, I cannot begin to thank the people who voted today. They stood by me as the politics of personal destruction played out in an unprecedented level in Hamilton County. I wish I could shake the hands of every one of the 1,203 good people, he says, who voted for me today, because they know the difference between right and wrong. And since there's not a Democratic challenger for that Hamilton County Commission seat, Tim Boyd will maintain his position there as the citizen watchdog on the commission. And that of course, being the citizen watchdog, he's looking out for you, and that makes him an enemy of other commissioners. They don't respect him. They think he's just making trouble. They think he's grandstanding. You know, the kind of familiar charges that come against someone who really cares about the voter and has acted on that body, unlike the other members. There are other members who have not been strident and kind of demanding on what is the interest of the people. And Tim Boyd has been like that. He is a man like that. He's available to the press, and he offers scathing analyses of you might say slush fund operations in county government. And he's not too far on that side. For example, he was upset when the county raised taxes for public schools, not on the rise in taxes itself, right? He didn't go that far as I would have gone. But he said the problem he has with the way the tax bill went through and raised the rate, not the rate, but the overall collections, was that there was not enough time for study and review. And his criticism was of the method of the council, of the commission, not of the increase in revenue in some millions of dollars for public schools. So he's not a radical like me, right? Not a radical free marketer. So he has sympathetic to other people who are sort of more progressive or who are progressive. Also on the county commission, there's a woman named Catherine Jeter who ousted Greg Beck from the county commission. Now there's a story I want to get to just that I'm about to post. I've been trying to get a hold of a lady, the mother of a young woman named Valdacia Whaley. And here we have in view the election in Bradley County, where Cleveland is the Cleveland is the head, and Cleveland is the center of business for that county, where the sheriff Eric Watson has his compound, right, the sheriff's compound in Bradley County, where the job is not just keeping the peace anymore, but as we have all across the country, we have law enforcement, right, law enforcement, where the state's interest is always paramount, and the people are the subject, or the people are the object. In a way, they're the kind of the enemy, and their liberties and their freedoms are under control and trammeled by the operations of law enforcement. Now, we have one area that we're concerned about here on the David Tula Show, and that's the operation of Title 55. And what I have found by just reading the law is ultra vires enforcement everywhere, in every county, in every city. We have enforcement of Title 55, the transportation law, as if all the people who are stopped on the side of the street are in fact involved in transportation, and they're not. So there's a problem there, one that permits illegally. I have suggested to a small but growing number of officials illegally and tortiously and oppressively injuring the rights of people on the road. Valdacia Whaley is 17. She was arrested on April the 8th in a case in which there was a search, an intensive search and intensive interrogation of her as a minor, with three other people, young men, three of them, two of them her relatives. One was Austin Trey Dodd, Raquan Dodd, and then also a friend of one of these young men, Jashawn Hill, 19. He's a Tennessee State University student. April 8th, traffic stop. And we took an interest in this story because it was first covered in the press, and we immediately saw an affidavit from a man who made a video of the interaction between 6 deputies from Sheriff Eric Watson's office, and the occupants of what's called a vehicle, a pickup truck. And what we have is a 45-minute detention. It is an arrest in Tennessee. If you read the case law for it, if you are not free to go, you are under arrest. And she and the three young men in the car were under arrest. And the man who made the video, Jamichael Parks, also was arrested for making a video. And clearly a case for John Wolf to investigate. John Wolf, the civil rights attorney in Chattanooga, who has sued Bradley County maybe a dozen times, maybe more, in the course of a 15, 20-year legal career in the Chattanooga area. And here's another case for John Wolf, and that is the fact that the officer, Dale Liner, forbade the innocent use of a cell phone camera to make a record. There was no intervention by the citizen, Jamichael Parks, of the cops' activity. There was nothing of that at all. It's just that he approached the officers with his camera rolling, and the officer, Dale Liner, took his camera from him and tried to delete the video, a 30-second spot on that device, and abusively spoke to him using foul language. The foul language part, I think, is the highlight of the story. And was there probable cause in the stop? Maybe. It's iffy, but the fact that the deputy used a word that describes your mother and another word attached to it with the letter F at the beginning of it, and this kind of talk by Eric Watson's deputies is simply unbelievable, and that this man wasn't fired when the record showed that he had used this word is simply, I would say, remarkable, breathtaking. And another deputy told Miss Whaley to sit on her ass or face jail. That was another thing. But the fact that a minor had to hear a word like that that's used by soldiers in the heat of combat is remarkable. And so what I have is something to mention. So see, getting back to my larger question about do elections matter. I don't think elections matter because the new man in Bradley County is unlikely to change the foundations of the current system, which is that people, especially when they're involved in a traffic arrest, especially as part of the Yankee drug war, they are mere sacks of potatoes, especially if they're black, right? If you're an African American, you are a piece of property. At the moment that you're stopped under either reasonable suspicion or probable cause, you are a piece of property. And that is how policing in America treats minorities, and it treats the poor the same way. But especially, you're treated as an object, as a in a proprietary fashion, if you are a descendant of slaves. Now, there's another part of this story that if you read YourNews.com, our chief sponsor, that's YourNews.com, you'll read more about what this young woman said. She said, so after that, that's when he pulled Austin out of the car, and they put them on the car, she says, and they was searching him. I was the second person to get out of the car and had to wait until the lady officer came from the O'Reillys. This was the lady who had in her breast, ostensibly, the reasonable suspicion of drug use, and that is because she said she smelled marijuana from somebody's clothes among these three young men and girl. When she came, that's when she searched me. She searched me hard. She kept hitting my wrong area hard and kept saying there was something in there, and I had everything on me when I did it. She kept saying, she kept asking me, who threw it on you? Who threw it on you? Repeatedly. And I was like, what are you talking about? Nobody threw anything on me. She was trying to say, who threw drugs on you? Which nobody had any drugs or threw anything on anyone. And that's from an interview that I have, and I'll be posting that at YourNews.com. That's our sponsor here, YourNews.com. And my number is 800-8949. That's 800-8949. I'm David Toulis. And to me, this kind of abuse has to stop, especially of people who are the victims of the white class, right? The white race victimized the black race. And I'm concerned that I'm not personally, David Toulis, repenting of my sins for that. Did I have slaves? No. Have I directly abused a black person? No. But I've read a book that has changed my mind about many things. And that book is by Joel McDermott, a Christian Reconstructionist and author in Atlanta, or just north of Atlanta. And the book is called The Problem of Slavery in Christian America. The Problem of Slavery in Christian America. And so I'm not concerned about the problem of false guilt that my fellow Christians raised, saying they're not responsible for slavery or the evil consequences against the black race for decades after it was over officially. I don't take that view. I take the view that I'm responsible for this, and I need to repent for it, and I need to do everything I can to help minority people, to help aliens and strangers, and to do what I can to give to them what my people, the white people, did against them for generations since the 1500s in this continent. Late 1500s is when the first colonies came. Colonists came in the 1600s. The civilization of America developing, and that whole time, growing in the 1700s, the slave kept his chattel property, kept in violation of God's law, which says that a slave has to be liberated after 7 years. And if that slave is converts to Christianity, that slave has to be freed then, right? That there is an inducement in the slave law, in the scriptures, to repent and to become a Christian. So those people should have been freed automatically, but they weren't. The white people kept in slavery perpetually, all the while pretending to have God's favor. So this book has changed my mind. This book has put me on given me a new reason for my work here at New Radio 92.7 FM. And one project I'm working on is called this. It's called Transportation Administrative Notice. Please read up on this important area. David Toulis.
Chattanooga Radio.